Jai Ram Rama Ram Jai Radha Madhava Jabi Jai 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Jagat Guru Krishna Prabhupada, all glories to Gurudev, and all glories to Assembled Vaishnavi devotees, and all glories to Her Grace Mother VRAJALILA Devi. Hare Krishna, Mother.
Haribol Prabhuji.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. We're very grateful to have your association and to have you speak to us today. Of course, today, Mother VRAJALILA Devi is the one speaking to us today. And Mother VRAJALILA needs no introduction. She is the universal mother, auntie, sister to almost all of us on this platform, and probably to many others who will also be listening in to this Krishna Katha. So we're always grateful to have your association and to hear from you. So we may put the verse on the screen and then you take it over from here, Mother.
Okay, thank you.
Hare
And
Krishna.
Saha, I just realized Srila Prabhupada chanted Jai Radha Madhava. So
Yes.
I think there's no need to do that again, right?
No need.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Naranam Namaskritya Naranchaivam Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamurudaya Nasta Praishu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavati Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhagavati Naishtiti. So today we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 2, no, Canto 2, chapter 9, text number 17. 2970. Okay, Hare Krishna. And I'll do the Sanskrit and the synonyms and then read Srila Prabhupada's purport. Adhiyarha niyasanam ashtitam param pritam chatur sodashat pancha shaktibihi yuktam bagay swai itaratra chad hiru vahai swaeva danam Ramamanam Ishvaram. Ramamanam. It's a pretty word. Synonym. Adyar Haniya. Adhiyar Haniya. Greatly worshipable. Ashanam, throne. Ashtitam, seated on. Param, the supreme. Britam, surrounded by. Chatur, four, namely Prakriti, Purusha, Mahat, and Ego. Sodasha, the 16, Pancha, the 5, Shaktibihi, by the energies, Yuktam, empowered with, Bagahi, Bagahi, his opulences, Swahi, personal, Itaratra, itaratra, other minor proneness. Cha, also, adruvahi, temperate, suave, eva, certainly. Dhamma, abode, ramamanam, enjoy, ramamanam, enjoy. Ishvaram, the Supreme Lord. Srila Prabhupada's translation, the Lord was seated on his throne and was surrounded by different energies, like the 4, the 16, the 5, and the 6 natural opulences, along with other insignificant energies of the temporary character. But he was the factual Supreme Lord, enjoying his own abode. Srila Prabhupada's purport, the Lord is naturally endowed with 6 opulences, with his 6 opulences. Specifically, he is the richest, he's the most powerful, he's the most famous, he's the most beautiful, he's the greatest in knowledge, and he's the greatest renouncer as well. And for his material creative energies, he is served by 4, namely the principles of Prakriti, Purusha, Mahatattva, and ego. He is also served by the 16, namely the 5 elements, earth, water, air, fire, and sky, the 5 perceptive sense organs, the eye, ear, nose, tongue, and skin, and the 5 working sense organs, the hand, the leg, the stomach, the evacuation outlet, and the genitals, and the mind. The 5 includes the sense objects, namely form, taste, smell, sound, and touch. All these 25 items serve the Lord in the material creation, and all of them are personally present to serve the Lord. The insignificant opulences, numbering 8, the Ashtasiddhis, attained by yogis for temporary overlordship, are also under his control. But he is naturally full with all such powers without any effort, and therefore he is the Supreme Lord. The living being, by severe penance and performance of bodily exercises, can temporarily attain some wonderful power, but that does not make him the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord, by his own potency, is unlimitedly more powerful than any yogi. He is unlimitedly more learned than any jnani. He's unlimitedly richer than any wealthy person. He's unlimitedly more beautiful than any beautiful living being. And he's unlimitedly more charitable than any philanthropist. He is above all. He is above all. No one is equal to or greater than him, nor can anyone reach his level of perfection in any of the above powers by any amount of penance or yogic demonstrations. Yogis are dependent on his mercy. Out of his immensely charitable disposition, he can award some temporary powers to the yogis because of the yogis hankering after them. But to his unalloyed devotees, who do not want anything from the Lord save and accept his transcendental service, the Lord is so pleased that he gives himself in exchange for unalloyed service. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ganati Mirandasya, Ganagana Shalakaya, Jakshur Militam Yena. With my Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swa Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalan Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sarabhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vidamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Panamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine, Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine. Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pashtatyade Shatarine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale. Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shitatmane. Shri Gaura Karya Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Iti Namine. Hari Hari Bol.
And so I will certainly do everything I can, and I invite you.
The translation again. The Lord was seated on his throne and was surrounded by different energies like the 4, the 16, the 5, and the 6 natural opulences, along with other insignificant energies of the temporary character. But he was the factual Supreme Lord, enjoying his own abode. Tagora Haribol. Haribol, their devotees. So again, I'm very blessed to be here with all of you. I'm grateful and just so always happy to be on this forum. And thank you so very much for coming, taking the time, your precious, precious time to be here with us. We really appreciate it. Hare Krishna. So this verse is continuing, of course, with Lord Brahma getting this amazing privilege to get a vision of the spiritual world. And I was, when I read the verse last night, I was thinking, wow, if anybody had any questions about Krishna being a person, then they just need to read this part of Srimad Bhagavatam and hear about Lord Brahma seeing, at least he's seeing Vaikuntha. However, we know Prabhupada has told us that there's not much difference between Lord Vishnu and Lord Krishna. So Brahma is getting this amazing, amazing vision of Vishnu seated on his throne. And so we, sometimes we hear people say, well, God is not a person. Actually, I was doing a group last night, and that's what one of the persons was saying. It's so very hard to understand that God is a person. However, in many scriptures, there is some understanding, there's some references to God being a person. However, I think many of the practitioners may not, either they're not so in tune to reading those parts of their scriptures, or they just kind of prefer to stay in the realm of a little bit of impersonalism, to not really give God a form, because they may tend to think that if they give God a form, then that makes God imperfect, or that makes God ordinary, or that makes God like us, Krishna like us. And so people don't want to do that, because they do have this awe and reverence, which is quite amazing, because most people are in that mood of Vaikuntha. They understand God is opulent. They understand God is infinite, yet they hesitate to put a form, to give God a form. And so these verses help us immediately to knock that out, right? What's in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the first few verses, that's one of the main things that we hear from Srila Vyasadeva, is that we want to knock out all religion that doesn't give us like ultimate understanding of the goal. What is the goal? And the goal is, of course, to know Krishna, to get to understand Krishna, to eventually, for some of us, be with Krishna. So we hear Krishna is seated on a throne, which means somebody, that has to be somebody sitting on a throne. And we learn, here, that Vishnu is seated on this throne, and then Vishnu is surrounded by his different energies. And this is, to understand this requires us to accept that we can never totally understand Krishna, that to really be able to understand Krishna and his energies does require mercy. I believe Prabhupada mentions that in the purport. It definitely requires mercy from the Lord to understand how the Lord and his energies work. First thing is to understand that Krishna's energies are not different from him. And that and I'm going to go back and forth with using Vishnu and Krishna. In this case, we know that it's Lord Vishnu, because Prabhupada referenced that he's sitting on the throne. And we know that Brahma is getting this vision. He's been blessed to have transcendental eyes to see, to be able to see Vaikuntha, to see what's going on in Vaikuntha. And so here Prabhupada is taking the time to help us to understand that Krishna, he's so wonderful. He's so glorious. And here we're learning about some of his different energies that's there with him, personally there with him. So we get a glimpse of that Vaikuntha. And we even though we may say, well, we're not seeing Vaikuntha, Brahma may have got blessed to see Vaikuntha, but we're not seeing Vaikuntha. Well, actually, we are seeing Vaikuntha. However, we may not be seeing Vaikuntha through the transcendental eyes that Brahma saw the Lord. We are seeing Vaikuntha through our ears, through hearing. And Prabhupada referenced that often, that actually to be able to hear, is a way for us to develop our transcendental eyes, which is why hearing is one of the processes for attaining bhakti, for attaining purity. And so when we look at, some of the points that Prabhupada is making here, it's important to know that spiritual energies, someone may say, well, how is it, that these energies that's been spoken about, they're supposed to be material, yet we're speaking about the Lord, about Vishnu sitting on the throne with his energies. So how do we reconcile that this is material energies, and then Vishnu, of course, is transcendental? So it's simple. We know that whatever is here on any of these universes, that it's really only a replica of what's in the spiritual world. So these energies are spiritual. And as they descend into the material realms, they become grosser and grosser and grosser and grosser. And so what we see in those energies are really very gross, because those energies become, as we say, they become more gross as they enter into these material realms. They also become more subtle as they go higher and higher, into eventually going to Vaikuntha with Krishna, with Vishnu. And so here, these energies that Srila Prabhupada is speaking about, or that's in the translation, these energies, they are, I'll just talk about them for a few minutes. They are ultimately Krishna's spiritual energies, and they're with him. So everything in Vaikuntha is personal, as we all know. Everything is, it has form. And so these energies have taken form, and they are form, and they are there with Vishnu, and they're there as servants. That's very key to understand, that everyone is a servant when it comes to the Supreme Lord. Everybody has that mood and that mentality. They're simply servants. So these different energies, they are servants, and they're aware that they're servants. They're really ready for the beck and call of Vishnu to just tell them what to do, where to go, how to do it. And they're just waiting, and they're there serving him. So, of course, Brahma is seeing all this, and so we're hearing about these energies, because when you hear about a person, then you hear everything about that person. You hear how they look, what they're doing, what kind of activities they're having. We want to, if we're going to describe anyone, we're going to describe their surroundings. And so it's, so to describe Vishnu means to describe everything about Vishnu. So as we said, the energies are not different. So this is why there is a description of these amazing energies. I'm going to shift a little before I talk a little bit about the energies, to give us a little bit of, and myself, just to bring this into the room, that as we know, there are 10 topics to Srimad Bhagavatam, 10 different topics. And the first topic is Swarga. That's the universal creation. And that's yeah, that creation is actually the first service, so to speak, in the material realm. And then there's Visarga, the secondary creation, which is by Lord Brahma. And I'm sure most everyone on this platform is aware of that creation and how it took place. Brahma is in the lotus. He doesn't have a father or a mother, and he's kind of wanting to understand what's going on. He's kind of in darkness. He wants to learn, what am I supposed to do? And then Vishnu appears to him and tells him, okay, greets him and tells him, okay, this is what you're going to do. This is what your service is. You're going to create. So that's the secondary creation. And then in this particular purport, Prabhupada gives a brief mention. He skips all the other 9 topics and goes specifically to the 10th topic, which is the supreme shelter, the Lord Krishna. And so we get here in this particular purport a little understanding of Swarga, a little understanding of Visarga, and then to the end of the purport, Prabhupada talks of Ashraya, which is the devotees and the Lord. Only the devotees can really understand the Lord. The pure devotees can understand the Lord. And everybody else is attempting to understand the Lord. That includes us until we're pure. We are attempting to practice bhakti. We're learning, we're in the process of learning how to practice bhakti. Sometimes we get a little caught up, and sometimes the ego takes over and we think we're great practitioners and we think, okay, I've been practicing for 40 years or 50 years and I know so much Sanskrit and I know so much Sastra. And, however, we learn in the scriptures that until we become pure, what does that mean? Anyavilasita sunyam. Absolutely no motivation, no desire for anything for ourselves. Everything is fully focused on the Supreme Lord. Until we come to that place in consciousness, then we're all aspiring. We're aspiring to be back to as bhakti practitioners. So this is important to remember about this particular verse. And so in this section, we see that, as I said before, Brahma is blessed. He's absolutely blessed by Vishnu to look into the Vaikuntha planet and just see what's going on. And he got empowered, of course, by Krishna. He got empowered in order to create. And so this is like a blessing. Sometimes we may get different services, right? It's not such a good analogy. However, this is where my thoughts are going. We get some service, and then with that service, we may get some blessing for that particular service, right? We may get to, sit and talk with the guru, or, sit and whatever, I remember once I had an opportunity in Dallas, Texas, to sit with His Holiness Kamal Krishna Maharaj. He invited us. We were at a program, and it was like a GBC meeting or something like that. That's the time when I was involved with the GBC. And he invited us for lunch. And so myself, Ekavir, and another devotee who has since left her body, we were the ones who were there at that meeting. And so we went up to his room that he invited us, and we sat to have lunch. And he served us pizza, and he was having pizza. And I remember at a point, I said to him, wow, I don't know what we've done to deserve this, because it was such an honor to sit with Tamal Krishna Maharaj. He was just so easy and so at home, and just so simple. And when you hear about him, you hear about this great, amazing personality. So to be in that presence, to see him like that, just so ordinary acting, I was like in awe, and I openly, as I do sometimes and get in trouble, I openly said to him, wow, I don't know what we did to deserve this, to be able to sit here with you like this and to have lunch with you. And And he looked at me in a very loving, fatherly way, but strong. And he said, "You didn't do anything. It is only the mercy of your guru." And I was like, oops, okay, thank you, So sharing that story to say, yeah, sometimes we think, we get some special, I don't know, some special treatment, and we then our ego kicks in and we think we're great, So here Brahma is getting this special treatment, and he's getting the chance, he's getting this chance to see Vaikuntha. However, and we see in Brahma's pastimes, we know that sometimes he gets a little puffy also. We know the Brahma Mohan Lila, what happened with him and Krishna. So this is just part of, I guess the process that everyone goes through, right? The tendency, as long as there's these different energies, the tendency is to get covered by some of these energies. So Brahma is now, he's watching with his spiritual eyes, this Vaikuntha, and he's, now getting this opportunity to see these different energies, right? So we're back to the energy. So these energies, is important to remember that Krishna is the supreme energetic, that Krishna, so glorious and so wonderful and so amazing, wonderful Krishna, glorious Krishna, that he has innumerable energies, and that these energies, that they exist on 3 different levels. These energies they exist on a gross level in the material realm, and then they exist on a subtle level, which we even understand ourselves, mind, intelligence, ego, like that, very subtle. And then they exist spiritually. They all come from the spiritual realm. And then, as I said earlier, they enter into our realm. And so Prabhupada explains in one purport, he gives us an example. He says, what is the sun without the sunshine? So he uses that to explain who is Krishna without all his energies, right? Like, can you see the sun? I mean, of course, sometimes the sun is covered. However, the sun is normally the sunshine. And so therefore, with Krishna, or for example, with a powerful person, they always have an entourage of other people. So similarly with Krishna, he has these different energies that are always there, as I said earlier, to ready to serve. And so here is explained about these 4 energies. The first 4, Prakriti, Purusha, Mahat, and Ego. And these energies are usually, Krishna uses these energies as a part of his first creation. These in the Swarga creation. This is when Krishna uses these particular energies. And then the 16 energies, which are earth, Prabhupada explains this in the purport, earth, water, fire, air, and sky, the eye, ear, nose, tongue, and skin, the hand, the leg, the stomach, the evacuation outlet, genitals, form, taste, smell, sound, and touch, and the mind. So these energies, they manifest in the material world. And these energies are serving the Lord. They're servants to the Lord. And so that's an important point that Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport, that that these different energies, even though he cited them individually, the point he's making to us is that they're simply there in the Vaikunthas, ready to serve. And so so that's why we get this vision. We're hearing this vision of why these energies are there with Krishna. And then, of course, Prabhupada references the natural opulences of the Lord: wealth, power, fame, beauty, knowledge, renunciation. And he talks about the Ashtasiddhis, which he gives the example of the yogis and how they may have all these, different cities listening to a class, and this devotee was saying about the first time he went to the Kumbh Mela. And it was something like 50 million people came to the Kumbh Mela, and the Indian government couldn't figure out how in the world 50 million people could all come together like that, because there's not enough transportation, in India to say how people got there, but they got there. And so one of the things he was saying is that he learned, and there's other people that would say at the Kumbh Mela, but he learned that they were like yogis that were coming up from the ocean. That they would just come up from the ocean and come into the assembly right there at the Kumbh Mela. And we know that there are 8 cities, and the yogis can do all kinds of different things. If we read The Journey Home, we can hear from Srila Radhanath Maharaj about some of the yogis that he personally came across, and some of the amazing things that were that he saw and of course we hear so much about these yogis. But Prabhupada mentioned, it's so funny because in the translation it mentions other insignificant energies, right? So we know that the yogis, they do have some power. However, these powers are so insignificant. These 6 opulences, which is another reference that Srila Prabhupada is illuminating for us in this text, that he talks about them twice, right? So it's mentioned, I believe, in the, let's see, let me just look at this for a minute. So the energies are mentioned in the translation, and his opulences are mentioned, Bagahi, his opulences. And Prabhupada then mentions that in the purport. But here we in the translation, we understand that even though Vishnu is sitting on the throne and he has all these energies around him, there is a need to mention, but he was the factual Lord enjoying his own abode. So this reference helps us to understand that he's there, all these different personalities are there, representing their different services. But he's just there enjoying. Krishna is just there enjoying. Now, when Prabhupada, immediately as he enters into the purport, as he writes in his purport, he specifically mentions these 6 opulences. And then he speaks about them again as he goes on into the purport. So we understand when Srila Prabhupada mentions something twice, there's a reason. There's a reason for that. And in this case, in this particular purport, it's to help us to understand how wonderful Krishna is and how super excellent Krishna is. And so much of Krishna's opulence is explained in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and in 7.3, Srila Prabhupada Krishna explains to Arjuna that out of many thousands among men may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So to understand Krishna's opulences is very, very rare. Yet we're getting an opportunity to hear about those opulences twice in this purport. So Srila Prabhupada says, Krishna is unlimitedly more powerful than the yogis. And in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, we learn of all yogis, he who abides in me with great faith, worshiping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. So that's in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 647. And that helps us to understand that with all the powers that the yogis may have, and they have a lot of power, undoubtedly. However, Krishna says that of all these yogis, if those persons that just live with him with faith and worship him in transcendental loving service, then they are the greatest yogi. So that's the bhaktas, that's the pure devotees. They are the greatest yogis. So, and then Krishna goes, Prabhupada goes on to explain, he's unlimitedly more learned than the Gyanis. And so here in the third chapter, in the third verse of Bhagavad Gita, in the seventh chapter, Krishna says, out of many thousands among men, that's the verse I just read, sorry. And he explains that, of course, Gyan means knowledge. If a person is perfect in knowledge, if they're advanced in knowledge, it's very attractive, right? When we hear, this is something that sometimes our devotees, devotees of our institution, we get a little caught in this one. When we hear devotees speak the philosophy, and, especially when they, like I said, quoting verses, and they can go back and forth with sharing Krishna's pastimes, and, they can go in and out of all the different aspects of our scriptures. Devotees become very attracted, and it is very attractive. However, sometimes those devotees are speaking from mixed devotion, because again, we're not pure, right? We're aspiring to become pure. We are pure naturally, because we're parts and parcels of Krishna, we're spirit souls. However, we have not yet, at least I have not realized that purity. And so if I could be that kind of a person that speaks with authority of the scriptures, if I'm well-versed in Jnana Chakshus, I may become very attractive to others. But at the same time, I could very well still be a very mixed devotee, with my own different issues and idiosyncrasies and whatever. And so that's important for us to understand. But however, Krishna, he is more learned than anyone, right? Because the way we understand this is all of the books that we study is about Krishna. Everything that we in trying to understand the philosophy, all of it focuses on Krishna. So Krishna ultimately is the most knowledgeable. The other one is he's unlimitedly richer than any wealthy person. So Krishna is the proprietor of all riches. We can experience a rich person, like we have a lot of rich people, right? Especially in America, we have Bill Gates, who I was just seeing something yesterday. Is it Bill Gates? Yeah, I was seeing Bill Gates. So he's very wealthy, super wealthy. And a lot of his wealth he uses a lot of his wealth to help in developing free speech, right? He wants people to be able to speak freely and openly about whatever, whether it be politics or religion or whatever. And I was just seeing how recently someone interviewed him and was asking him very direct questions, and apparently he wasn't happy about those questions. And because those questions were really directed to what his philosophy is, free speech. And because they had to do with him personally, he became somewhat affected by those questions. And so here he is, he's the most, he's very wealthy. He's a wealthy person. And he's propounding this philosophy of free speech. However, when he's personally affected by that, then, of course, emotions come up. Yeah. But this is not the case, with Krishna. Krishna, he has so much wealth. He's distributing it everywhere. He's giving, in every situation, he's distributing his wealth. There's the pastime of Krishna having 16,108 wives. And I was listening to Namras, yesterday speaking about that. And he was talking about how someone asked him the question about Krishna. How's it people misunderstand when we talk about Krishna, and how he had all these different wives, and why is it that we rebuke people we rebuke men when they want to have more than one wife? Why is that? And so Namras, Namras is kind of Anyway, he's an interesting devotee. He's a wonderful, interesting devotee. So he was like saying, well, if you can have, 16,108 wives and 16,108 palaces that's bedecked with marble and jewels, and if you can produce furniture for them in all these 16,108 palaces with ivory and gold, he says, then yeah, okay. Then maybe you could say that you have inherited somehow this propensity from Krishna to have more than one wife, right? So he was explaining like that. And also that Krishna gave each of his wife 10 children, 1,608 wives. He gave them 10 children each. And he would go to each one home at the same time, palace to the palace of each different wife. So this is Krishna. Who can understand this kind of, wealth? When we think of wealth, we think of money, but wealth goes way beyond just money. He somehow or other Krishna is able to maintain 16,108 wives. And if it meant that he had to have money for that, then okay, then he had all the money to be able to take care. Most men in our society have challenges, taking care of one wife because it's so hard in Kali Yuga. It's hard to earn money. It's hard to, like satisfy women and maybe the things that they may want or need or whatever, It's not an easy thing. It's very difficult for males in this age to support a female. Because, females, they do have different desires. And so what to speak, so here's Krishna, the most wealthy. Okay. There's an example and there's so many people that have wealth that we find attractive, right? Like this Bill Gates person, people are attracted to him. He's buying farmland everywhere and probably coming to Africa, probably already in Africa, so people get attracted. They get attracted to people that seemingly are wealthy. And so Krishna is the most wealthy because Krishna owns all the farmlands, right? Krishna owns everything that all the whatever wealth these people may have. Krishna owns it. It belongs to the Lord. It doesn't belong to them. Oh, unfortunately, most people don't understand that. And then the next point Prabhupada made, which is again to help us to understand glorious Krishna, wonderful Krishna, unlimitedly more beautiful than any living entity. So I just wanted to read something that I found just really beautiful that describes Krishna. The Lord's beauty is compared to rainfall because the rain falls in the rainy season. It becomes more and more pleasing to the people. After the scorching heat of the summer season, the people enjoyed the rainy season very much. So I think of having been born in a climate, in a country. I was born in a country where it was hot all the time. And I remember how we looked forward to rain, how wonderful it was to get, to have rain. It was just like, whoa, everybody would be so happy because it was cool off everything. And Krishna is explained like that. He's like so cooling and so soothing. His beauty is just something that we can't begin to really understand. Another thing that we hear, in the Shishupanishad is that Krishna is complete, right? Krishna is completely whole. Everything emanates from Krishna. So Krishna is the most beautiful. All of what we see in Krishna's creation comes from him. Krishna says, the splendor of, I can't remember that verse. I'm sure one of you know that verse. But he's the greatest of all splendor, something like that. So, and of course, Krishna's name means all attracted, means everything there is beautiful. Everything about Krishna is beautiful. That's the opulence that we all are attracted to. Anyone that sees a picture of Krishna, becomes just kind of bewildered. I remember another story this devotee told me once. He was visiting, he met this woman, he told me, and I'd work with a lot of people and they tell me different stories. But anyway, he met this woman and her name was Maya. And she was very attractive. And her name was actually really Maya. She was a mix of, I don't know, all different countries or whatever. And so he wanted to he wanted to connect with her. So of course he talked to her, and she invited him to her place, whatever. And he went there, and then he opened the closet. I believe it was winter, he told me. He opened the closet to put his coat in the closet. And then he saw in the closet this huge poster of Krishna. And he was shocked because this girl, apparently didn't know anything about Krishna. So he got so shocked when he thought Krishna was like Krishna was there, and Krishna is like right there, as he was looking at this poster. And he became a little bit afraid. And so he said to the girl, he said, "Where did you get this picture?" Because he just thought, oh, Krishna is like directly telling me you're up to some nonsense. And then the girl said, "I don't know. I saw that poster in a shop, and he's just so beautiful. I just had to have that poster." And she said, "And I couldn't think of where to put that poster. And so I thought, well, anybody that goes into that closet to put their coat, everybody comes, they put their coats." She said, "They would see that picture." And so there's Krishna, the most beautiful, in the most amazing situations. And there was Krishna in his beauty, helping that devotee. So Krishna is always doing many things at the same time. And fortunately for that devotee, he didn't engage in nonsense. Of course, he's unlimitedly more charitable, and that goes back to his wealth. So these are all the points that Prabhupada is making about Krishna to help us to really, in our day, just meditate on maybe even one of those unlimitedly ways that Krishna makes himself available for us. Whether it's through his beauty or his wealth or his fame. Krishna is famous. How do we experience Krishna in our day? How does Krishna show up? Does Krishna show up through his fame for us? Does he show up through his wealth? How does he show up? Every day he shows up, every single day. And so we can see Krishna through these descriptions that have been given to us, by Srila Prabhupada. And that's a way how Prabhupada helps us to remember Krishna. What's that always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. So if we just simply remember, oh gosh, he's given so much wealth. He's given us so much wealth just by, the fact that we don't have to, in many cases, most devotees, they don't have to struggle to eat. They don't have to struggle so much for shelter. Krishna arranges these things for the devotees. And so we can see Krishna showing up like that for us in different ways. And then the last point, Ashraya, which goes back to, again, that the 10th canto description, and this Ashraya taking shelter of Krishna. So in that part of this verse, Prabhupada mentions that he says that out of but his unalloyed devotees who do not want anything from the Lord save and accept his transcendental loving service, the Lord is so pleased that he gives himself in exchange for unalloyed service. So although we can't understand Krishna, Seva and Mukhi, this verse that from the Padma Purana, Hata Krishna Namadi Nabhavad Gayam Indriyahi, Sevan Mukhi Jivado Swayam Eva Spirat Adha. No one can understand Krishna as he is by the blunt material senses, but he reveals himself to the devotees, being pleased with them for their transcendental loving service. So only the pure devotees can really understand Krishna's inconceivable transcendental qualities, and only the devotees can understand that he's the cause of all causes. Only the devotees can understand his omnipotence, his opulence, his wealth, his fame, his strength, his beauty, his knowledge, his renunciation. Why? Because Krishna is benevolently inclined to his devotees. Actually, Krishna says that he's more pleased when we please his devotees than even pleasing him. And that brings me to the closing of this class today, is how important it is for us to be respectful of devotees. Not to say we won't have different things come up all the time. All the time. You know, I remember Sadachar, one devotee who's left his body, used to give this, he used to say like this, and I'm sure this is coming from Srila Prabhupada. He would say we're like potatoes, like dirty potatoes. He was a farmer, actually. He said, we're like dirty potatoes. And you take it out the ground. When you take the potatoes out the ground and you put them in a thing to be washed, he said, devotees are like that. They're like dirty potatoes put in a big container to be washed. And so when you do that, of course, the dirt is coming off, but it's getting around, it's there, it's still there. And so, yes, as we aspire to become devotees, there may be so many different things that is still getting washed away, purified. However, it's important to remember we're all getting washed, and it's important to remember that each devotee is special to the Lord, each one of us. And so to respect each other and to be able to communicate with each other, dialogue with each other about our differences is most important. And that way we can see how Krishna can show up, in our lives. Okay, my dear friends, thank you very much. I'm very grateful again to be on this platform as always. I'm happy to be with my brothers and sisters and all of our friends. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mother VRAJALILA, for speaking to us. So many points highlighted, so many lessons to be learned. And dear devotees, if anyone may have something to share, questions to ask, please, you may unmute by using the hand emoji or your physical hand. You'll be asked to unmute to ask your question. Hare Krishna. Shriman Vara Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat Pranam Mataji.
Jai Prabhu.
Our glories to Srila Prabhupada. Our glories to Assembly devotees. Thank you very much. When you were talking about Krishna Sopulas, Krishna marrying 16,000 wives, and he gave them all 10 sons each. So somebody has asked me once, why Krishna did not give back to girls? Why only sons? I couldn't answer. Can you help us?
I can't answer that either, Prabhu. If you can't answer it, I can't answer it. I'm sure there were some girls there, however, they just weren't mentioned. I am guessing because I mean there wouldn't have been a continuation of that whole lineage if there weren't some girls. So there must have been some girls. However, in our scriptures, we have to look a little hard sometimes to find the devotees in female bodies, but they're there. However, they're there. So I don't know. That's one of my services, is to find these wonderful Vaishnavis and glorify them. I just finished doing a 2-week presentation with a group of Vaishnavis about Mother Gandhari. And there's so many things that's not revealed about Gandhari. So by my research, I was able to find some of these wonderful, glorious qualities of Gandhari. So I can't answer that question. I'm just grateful you guys have me on here.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mother. Thakur Murari Prabhu, please give me unmute.
Krishna, dear devotees,
Hare
now me and sisters. What was this question? Then did he ask if he had sons and not daughters? That was the question?
Yeah. The question was, he was asked by someone else why Krishna only had sons, no girls, no daughters.
Okay, it's a 16,108 wives and 10 sons and I think a daughter each.
There you go.
And a daughter each.
Yes, if my memory serves me right, 10 sons and 1 daughter. So,
Okay. Okay, good. So
Thank
Takub
you.
has helped us out.
So now I'm going to go back to that person that who was talking about that, and I'm going to ask him, why didn't you mention the 1 daughter? So
Yeah.
thank you, Dr.
Yeah, I think, but as the sons were prominent, 10 sons each, but if I'm not mistaken, 10 sons and a daughter. So I think you could check, but I'm quite sure,
All right.
but you could check. Okay, and thanks for the song as usual and your presentation. And as we were saying that we're different parts of the world, but we can connect on this platform.
Yes.
So and it's always nice, pleasant to see as you say, see the devotees' moonlight faces and the nectar. So thanks again for the song and the
Thank
presentation.
you.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Takara Murari Prabhu, for being with
Yeah,
us. Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah.
at the moment.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Murari Prabhu. If I'm not mistaken, I think in the case of Dhritarashtra also, who had 100 sons, he also
Yeah,
had, he also had 1 daughter,
that's
but
right.
but the daughter is kind of pushed aside some way.
Yeah. So many.
Yeah.
Yes.
But brother, I have a question about just like Shrimara Prabhu was asking about the opulences of Krishna. Of course, we understand from the scriptures that the entire material world is just a tiny portion of the entire kingdom of the Lord. And the remaining big chunk of the kingdom of God, everybody knows Krishna. Whereas in our material world, very few people know Krishna. Many people may talk about God, but like you rightly quoted from the Gita, where Krishna was saying, even those who have attained perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So if very, very few people know Krishna, how then is he the most famous? And if Krishna is the richest, how come that his children and his homes are not as pomp as other personalities? Like if you compare Lord Krishna's temples, Lord Krishna's devotees to Lord Shiva's temples and Shiva's devotees, Lord Shiva's temples and his devotees are far, far, far richer than Krishna temples and devotees. So how then does Krishna say that he is the richest?
Yeah. Well, Krishna is the richest because he gives us bhakti. And Lord Shiva, he could give us all this wealth temporarily. I used to be a Shiva Bhakta for many years. I chanted Om Namah Shivaya Namaha, and yeah, the people I was involved with at that time, they were very wealthy people. They were people, Hollywood people, whatever. But it's temporary. It's temporary. What Krishna gives us is eternal. There's bhakti, There's nothing richer than someone getting the opportunity to practice bhakti. So even though, yes, Lord Shiva, in his planet Kailash, it's very wealthy. What is, and in the material world, we can see it, right? We can see some of it. However, Lord Shiva, he's praying, as you know, he's always praying to the Lord. This is some of my most beautiful remembrance when I learned about bhakti is the prayers of Lord Shiva. And he says, Lord Shiva says, my dear Lord, you are the topmost of all bestowers of all benediction, the oldest and supreme enjoyer amongst all enjoyers. We just read that. You are the master of all the world's metaphysical philosophy, for you are the supreme cause of all causes, Lord Krishna. You are the greatest of all religious principles, the supreme mind, and you have a brain which is never checked by any condition. Therefore, I repeatedly offer my obeisance unto you. So Lord Shiva has 34 prayers in the Srimad Bhagavatam in Canto 4. And he's praying constantly to Krishna. So even though, yes, that's his service, is to give people, wealth, it's also his service to bring them to bhakti. That's how I came to bhakti. Somehow I met a devotee, and that devotee introduced me to bhakti. I had no desire to be a Krishna Bhakta because I was totally immersed in enjoying being a Shiva Bhakta. I love being a Shiva Bhakta, especially the people I was around. Lots of wealthy people serve Lord Shiva. Lots of prominent, known people serve Lord Shiva. However, when I met that devotee did one thing that reminded me of Krishna. I think the first question was, about how people don't know Krishna. Krishna is most famous, but people don't know Krishna. Everybody knows Krishna because the Lord is in the heart. They just don't remember. The Lord is in the heart, right? As Paramatma. So I didn't remember Krishna, of course. I didn't even want to remember Krishna, I don't think, when I was a Shiva Bhakta. Then I met this devotee. And this devotee was really kind because what that devotee did, I had an altar with Lord Shiva's, everything about Lord Shiva on it. And that devotee gave me a cassette tape at that time. And he said to me, listen to this every morning when you do your puja for Shiva. I was like, okay. And I would play that morning song, and it was Jamuna chanting, Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Every morning I would listen to that while I do my puja for Lord Shiva. And so that awakened that remembrance of Krishna. And that's how that started my journey into wanting to learn more about Krishna. So Krishna is the most wealthy, ultimately. And as our spiritual master always says, His Holiness Bhaktitirtha Maharaj, our revered spiritual master, he says, if there's anything else that will let me feel the love that I feel, or help me to awaken this desire to serve the Lord, if there's some other way to do it, then let me know. I'll go there. I don't think any of us has found another way. So that's Krishna's wealth. That's his fame.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for answering my question. Anyone else with something to share, to ask?
Yeah, just a quick.
Yes.
Sorry, your problem was before me?
Go ahead, Prabhupada. No, go ahead.
Okay, so quickly. So remember that although other people worship Lord Shiva, but he's not interested in material things. It's just that is superintendence of so while a lot of people worship him, but as you know, he's worshiping Lord Vishnu. That's number one. Number two is that in the Krishna Lila, that time was deity worship. You notice the gopis were worshiping Lord Shiva, meaning was worshiping Lord Shiva, but they weren't worshiping Lord Shiva as God, but worship Lord Shiva so he could give them some benediction to get the mercy of Krishna. So we have two persons who worship Lord Shiva as the supreme, but the other also worship Lord Shiva as a mediator or medium to Krishna. So they worship Lord Shiva for to get in Krishna's mercy. So you should remember that. I remember everything's come from Krishna. Okay. I'll go.
Ready.
Hare Krishna. Murari. Yeah, there are some who worship Krishna as a medium to getting Krishna, but probably that will be like 1%. The remaining 99%, they worship him as the Supreme Lord. And in fact, just as we studied the Vishnu Purana, and we learned that Lord Vishnu is the Supreme Lord, in many parts of the Shiva Purana, Lord Shiva is also glorified as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So sometimes this kind of transcendental query keeps going on. Who is the Supreme? Of course, we know, not simply because we are Vaishnavas, Vishnu followers, that Lord Vishnu is the Supreme, but it is an interesting topic where sometimes Lord Shiva is addressed as the Supreme Lord, even by Lord Vishnu himself. That is interesting. Madhavan,
If I may say, if I
go
may
ahead,
just share,
please.
yeah, if I may share before we go to Madhavan Prabhu, if
Yeah.
I may share one more prayer from Lord Shiva. I mean, these prayers I read every day, you know. He says, "My dear Lord, pure devotional service is even difficult for liberated persons to achieve, to discharge, but devotional service alone can satisfy you, who will take to other processes of self-realization if he," and I always add she, "is actually serious about the perfection of life." Who will take, this is Lord Shiva himself, you know. So a lot of people worship Lord Shiva without really understanding, you know, the philosophy of Lord Shiva, because most of the people, most of the teachers that are sharing anything about Lord Shiva, they don't usually give the philosophy, you know. They tell you all the wonderful things about what he can do and what he does for you in your life. But there's a depth to Lord Shiva that most people don't know. And that only comes when we start practicing bhakti, right? Only when I was practicing bhakti that I learned a lot about Lord Shiva prior to bhakti. I never really learned about his prayers to Lord Krishna. So yeah, it depends, as Krishna says, you know, and he makes himself available for our level of we're just very fortunate because we're getting the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Without the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we probably, at least I probably still be a Shiva Bhakta, you know. And then again, when we think of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it's only the mercy of Srila Prabhupada that we are so very fortunate that we're getting a chance to engage in devotional service. It's beyond our understanding, absolutely beyond our understanding. But yes, you know, Gandhari, she was a worshiper of Lord Shiva, and Krishna was there at the time when all these activities were going on. You know, with Gandhari and the whole whatever was going on at that time. Krishna was there, but yet she was worshiping Lord Shiva. So, according to our karma.
Thank you so much. If I'm not mistaken, I think even Arjuna worshipped Lord Shiva also.
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah. So this is a special benediction for us in this age of Kali. We get Lord Chaitanya's mercy. We're just mercy, products of mercy, 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 mercy. Yeah.
Madhavan Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna, Mother. All glory, all grace unto you. Let us speak. All glory to the Prabhupada. And all glory to assembly of devotees. What amuses me about today's discussion is that the separated energies of Krishna, they are personalities. So even the energies of the sense organs, the eye, the nose, the tongue, skin, even the working senses, all the rest, we could see that there are personalities even sitting around Lord Vishnu while he was on his throne. So my concern now is that supposing, let me just go, ordinarily, when we look at digital technology, we have the hardware, then we have the software. So in a situation, maybe somebody is blind or let's say there, physically everything there is intact, but you could not hear at the same time. So I'm thinking that since these energies are personalities, if one can have a way of communicating with these personalities, maybe it's possible one can rectify the fault somebody could not hear by chanting maybe some specific mantras, addressing these personalities. Maybe it could solve the problem. I'm just thinking loud. Hare Krishna, mother.
Wow, Madhuban Prabhu. You sound like how can I say, a very wise, esoteric devotee wanting to get into the mysteries of bhakti. And the greatest mystery, I know, Prabhupada says, the greatest miracle that we all have to address all of these personalities is the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Because when we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, it sensitizes us. And then we become more conscious about, for example, the five sense organs, the ear, the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the skin. So our eyes now, we just want to see more like visions of things that represent Krishna. We hanker to see the deities, we hanker to see pictures, we hanker, for things that remind us of Krishna. And the ear, we want to hear about Krishna. And so all of these different senses are engaged in service because we are now more conscious because of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And so, of course, the demigods, they're the ones that's really, kind of the caregivers of all of these different senses in our bodies. But even us, we become aware of what we shouldn't look at, what we shouldn't hear, what things that won't nourish us. We become aware of that. And that awareness comes from chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. That's the mantra for this age, for us all to take shelter. And all of these senses will become heightened, will become more aware. I hope that's helpful, Prabhu. We have some senior devotees that can also respond to that question, because that question is very esoteric. And I see Bhakta Hassan. So maybe I'll go to Bhakta Hassan, and then somebody, please, if you'd like to respond to Madhuvan, or if you want to respond now, and then we go to Bhakta Hassan.
Maybe we go to Bhakta Hassan.
Okay, all right.
Bhakta Hassan, please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna, Mother, please kindly accept my humble respect of essences.
You
All glory
ready?
to you, Dev, all glory to Srila Prabhupada, and all glories to you, and all glories to the assembled devotees. Mother, I have this, I'm curious, and I have this question which I want to ask. If I'm not mistaken, we living entities, we made up of some elements. I don't know all of them, but I think we made up of earth, water, air,
Fire.
ether, and I think in a subtle realm we made up of intelligence, mind, and force ego.
Yes.
So
You're reading. How beautiful.
My question is based on the force ego. Recently, I was listening to my Guru Maharaj and was talking about even Lord Shiva was confronted Krishna about how he gives ego to him. And if we look into our life, false ego is something which makes us fall and make us do many things which we don't have to do. And if you look at the other elements, all of them are very, very good to my understanding. But always we talk about false ego, false ego. So my question is, why is Krishna put false ego? Why is Krishna made it of false ego? What is the purpose of that? What is it good to us? Because all we hear is the negative part of false ego. So I was just curious, and and wondering why is Krishna made us of one of the elements has to be the false ego, which always make us fall down. This is my question. Hare Krishna.
Very nice question. So nice question. I'm going to come back in 1 minute. Somebody's knocking at the door. So let's take a little pause real quick and let me just see who that is. And I'll definitely answer. Or if somebody wants to answer Bhakta Hassan, and I'll come back. I just want to see who's at the door.
Hare Krishna. Well, this is also, I think, an important point to be referenced or to be looked into. I am not sure, because I've asked this question before, that does Krishna create the material beings with these 5 growths and the 3 subtle elements? And the last of the 3 subtle elements is ego. And I'm not sure whether it is ego or false ego. But my little understanding is that it is ego, but by the misuse of the 11 entities, then the ego becomes false ego. That's my little understanding, but maybe our revered speaker may have something better to share.
Well, not better, Saha. I love Dr. Hassan asked that question. It's so beautiful because, yeah, when we start asking about the false ego, that means we want to go to start understanding more about the real ego, right? Suda Sattva, what is our real ego? Because our real ego is really pure, connected to Krishna, as Saha was sharing. However, when we enter into these realms, when we desire to be separate from Krishna, when we say, okay, we're in a spiritual realm with Krishna, and then we get anxious to understand something different, what's going on? Why are you being worshipped? Why are all these gopis, well, we get some desire to try to figure out something different, then Krishna arranges, okay, you can go where there's a lot of people who has that same mood. And so then we enter into these realms, right? And like you said, we take on these gross aspects of ourselves: earth, water, fire, air, ether. That's a part of who we are. And then mind, intelligence, and false ego. Firstly, I want to just appreciate you for studying. I really appreciate that you're doing that. I'm sure that pleases your spiritual master so much. So false ego, exactly, it says false because it's not real, And the reason there's an emphasis on the false ego refers usually to thinking I, me, and mine, separate from the Supreme Lord, separate from Krishna. Everything is about me. And I'm sure you meet people like that every day. People show up like that every day when you have to, do things in the world. It's all based on me, mine, what's best for my family, what's best for me, what's best for, my situation. That's false. That's not understanding true ego. True ego is when a person develops humility to remember that they're servants, which is why this verse is so important, because Srila Prabhupada in the purport reminds us that those energies, they're there with Vishnu to remind us that they're servants of Vishnu. And that's our inherent nature, is to be a servant. When we realize that we're servants, then we actually start remembering our true ego, who we really are. However, as long as we're covered by this need to, to lord it over material energy, to think we're God, I'm God, you're God, we're all God. Whenever we start thinking like that, then that's considered false ego. Why is there so much emphasis on it in this material world? Is for exactly the reason you're asking, so that we can then start exploring more about, well, how do I become humble to access my true ego? How do I become humble? And that is a lifetime, sometimes many lifetimes of practice, is to become is to become, aware of our true ego, aware of who we really are as servants. That's why that verse of so many people, will come to me out of thousands, but one will actually get to know me. So thank you, Bhakta Hassan. And now you're on the journey of what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give us, how to become humble. That's the most beautiful journey. It's an internal journey. And as you start paving yourself on that part of the journey, you'll start learning many wonderful things about yourself internally. You'll start learning. And I'm not, you already know, just to be a devotee of the Lord, you already inherently know. However, things will start being revealed more and more and more and more. So thank you so much for that question. I really appreciate how you're so sincere and want so much more and want knowledge. Knowledge starts with humility. Most important. Okay, I hope that answers it. I mean, Saha, you answered him.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you showed him at the door.
Okay. Oh, okay. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. It has really helped me to understand the real meaning of ego, because most of the time when we hear the false ego, we think only negative. So thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
No, it's important. False ego is to hear false ego is really important, because then, like you are, we question, right? That's a student. A student questions, like, what does that mean? And then then that starts opening windows and doors, and it leads us on the path of what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said, Shanara Pisa Nichena, Tarora Pisa Hishana, Amani na Amani Dena, Kirtanida Sadahari. He says, one should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street, not lack of self-esteem, just lower, meaning that we're servants. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige. False prestige means, who are we? We're insignificant, really, but we think we're great. Most of us think we're great. And should be ready to offer all respects to others, to everyone. That means not just people, even to the animals and the trees. And in such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord incessantly. I'll tell a quick story as Sita Kormorari is here. This devotee called me the other day, and she said they had a big storm. It was a really big storm. And this tree, this really big tree, fell on their house. And she was like scared, because it could have hurt. They could have gotten hurt. If the tree fell over part of the house, they were not in that part of the house. And so that next morning, she was sharing with her daughter, the tree fell on the house last night. And, she was just kind of expressing to her daughter how she was so scared and she was so grateful nobody got hurt. And her daughter started crying, and she says, I lost my best friend. That great tree was my friend. And the daughter went out to the roots of the tree and wrote a poem about the tree. And so she sent me that poem. And I was just like, wow, this is an amazing kid, like connected to the tree. She wasn't thinking like, oh, I was going to die or whatever, or that could have died. She was just like thinking of that tree. So we need to become like children like that. And then we won't have false ego. Haribol.
Hare Krishna. Beautiful lesson. Thakur Murari Prabhu, please, if you're on mute.
Yeah, hope I'm not taking over the Sangha. Anyway, so there's a little thing about ego. It says it means easing God out. EGO?
Yeah.
Easing God out. That's number one. Number two, once you hear the name false, it means it's not, so we know ego. So in the material world, most of what we know, all of what we know will be false. In other words, it's like a shadow, so the shadow is a reflection of some solid. That a shadow is not solid, but for the shadow to be there has to be something that is more than a shadow.
Yeah.
So as we know, this material world really, but it's a perverted reflection of the real stuff. So ego is there, but the real ego is not of this world. Yes. So yeah. So when it's a false, there's a happiness. We don't have real happiness here. Yeah. No, because once something starts and it ends, but that's not real. So it's important we know difference, but real ego is of the spiritual world. Yes. Hare Krishna.
Good.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Takwamara. Hare
Yeah.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Well, I think Madhavan Prabhu's Madhavan Prabhu's question about praying to one of the energies of the Lord for a particular need that we may have. Krishna already explains that in the Bhagavad Gita. Like Mother VRAJALILA was saying that almost everything pertaining to this, our material world and the material body, is governed by a demigod or a demigoddess. And if one wants to get a benefit from one particular aspect, if one knows that particular demigod or demigoddess, then you become a servant to him or her, and you get your desires fulfilled. But we are advised not to do that because Krishna says those who do that are unintelligent. Because even the demigods, demigoddesses who can award us with all these things we may be asking from them, they are actually getting them from him, Krishna. So yes, the likelihood of some people approaching a particular energy of the Lord for a particular reason is there, and many people do it. But we are discouraged to doing things like that. And that's why we do not worship any demigod, demigoddess other than Krishna and nobody else. That's my little contribution.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Thank you. I quite appreciate your explanation. Thank you.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Saha. Thank you.
That's a very nice question, very insightful. Anyone else with something to share before we let Mother go? Well, I think we may call it a day. And Mother, we can't thank you enough for always coming on here to share with us your love and your wisdom. And we pray and hope that somehow Guru and Krishna will arrange for us to have very lengthy and beautiful association to purify ourselves, so when we leave this mortal body, we don't come back here again. I'm speaking like this because this is my greatest desire. Some devotees don't care coming back here. But myself and the few devotees, if not many, we don't want to come back here. We want to go. We want to go to Vaikuntha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you very much. Thank you. Vaikuntha is here with us.
So Dave, you're not supposed to have any desire. A devotee doesn't have any desire.
That's why I'm not a devotee.
I was going to say we're in Vaikuntha now. Just hearing. By hearing, we're in Vaikuntha. Who was that just spoke?
No, that was a Salika.
Oh, Salika Prabhu.
Yes.
Sorry.
I would like to discuss the Srimad Bhagavatam in Vaikuntha. Not in this four-headed Brahma universe or any number of heads Brahma in this material world. like Gurudev in the final test will say, don't be jealous of me because I'm saying goodbye to you. Goodbye. But of course, he said he's leaving, but he's still here with us. So, but personally, I want to go back to Vaikunta. If it's back or not, that is another topic. I want to go to Vaikunta.
Hari, I'm just grateful that right now, Sahat, you are, even though you had that desire, that you are understanding that you are simply a servant. As every day you do the service without fail and consistently, you and Salika Prabhu, and I believe that that's a ticket to Vaikunta. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Bala. That would be a very nice ticket. Well, thank you so much, Mother, for your association and wisdom. And in fact, we say a big thank you to all the devotees for constant attendance to Srimad Bhagavatam Katha. Your association makes the gathering more blissful and more juicy. So, Hare Krishna.
I want to thank Narayani. I want to thank the Matajis that have come on this forum.
Yeah.
As we know, Matajis don't always get acknowledged. And so I have a service to acknowledge Matajis. I want to thank Narayani. I want to thank Loka. I did see Atma on here earlier. I want to thank you very much. Because it does make a difference to see our mothers and to hear from our mothers.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So we're going to humbly request you all to kindly unmute, and we all chant our Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation to our revered speaker, Her Grace, Mother VRAJALILA Devi. Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Rama Ram, Hare Hare. Vancha kalpa taribhyascha, kripa sindhuvya ivacha, patitanam pavanebhyo, vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Jai.
Praise Mother VRAJALILA Devi Dasi ki. Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai.
Thank you, Mother.